Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jane Darcy and I'm working on the business continuity team, and I would like to welcome you all to the webinar for the Strategic Ireland-based Inbound Agents Towards the Business Continuity Scheme 2022. So before we begin, I'm going to go through a few housekeeping notes. All attendee videos and audios are muted. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the question and answer function, which you'll find at the bottom of the screen. If you experience audio difficulties, you can click Join Audio or join meeting by phone. And just also to note, this webinar is being recorded. During the session, we will provide you with details on the eligibility, qualifying criteria, funding, and finally the application process, followed by a questions and answer section. And for this, we will be joined by our colleague, Adrian O'Donoghue, Head of Strategy Management and Investment Analysis. I will now hand you over to my colleague, Linda Riley, who will take you through the next part of the webinar.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'll share my screen with you now in a second. I was delighted to see so many people that I know on this list today, so you're all very welcome to everybody. But like I said, delighted that there was people there that I know well. So I had a little bit of a technical hiccup this morning, and I don't have the same background as some of the others have, so you'll have to forgive my paintings there in the background. So we'll start off now and get into a little bit about what this scheme is about and some of the context around it. So Minister Catherine Martin secured 50 million in Budget 2022 specifically for the Tourism Business Continuity Programme. And this is one of those schemes. So we have 4 schemes scheduled between now and Easter. This is the second scheme that is scheduled, and it will go for launch next Wednesday. So that's the 12th. We'll be open for 4 weeks, closing on the 9th of February 2022. And I would say at this point that if everyone could have their application in, if you're planning to apply, if you could have your application in ahead of that, just in case there's any IT issues on the day, just in case anything happens or goes wrong, we won't be in a position to take any late applications, so they won't be accepted. So please do have your application in good time. As Jane said, we're going to talk today about the Strategic Ireland-based Inbound Agent Scheme. There's 4 main points that I'm going to talk you to today: the eligible businesses, the qualifying criteria, a little bit about the funding award, and the application process. We'll finish up then with some questions and answers. So first of all, I'm going to talk you through the eligible businesses. So this scheme is broadly similar to last year, and a lot of you will be familiar with that scheme. The guidelines will be released next Wednesday. The eligible businesses include inbound tour operators, DMCs and PCOs who package, sell and market Ireland's tourism product overseas and have suffered significant losses as a result of COVID-19. The overall purpose of the scheme is to assist these inbound agents to withstanding the challenge and continuing impact of COVID-19 by providing a direct financial contribution to support business continuity and business continuity plans for areas such as fixed costs, and to seek to position them to continue operating through 2022. So that's sort of the scheme in a nutshell. The qualifying criteria then, again, broadly similar to last year, although there are some changes. Your business type must be, your business must be a relevant business type. So an Irish-based inbound agent who is a member of or eligible to become a member of ITOA, IGTOA, AIPCO, Fáilte Ireland approved DMC or PCO, or attended 2 Fáilte Ireland international trade platforms in 2018, 19, or 20. So just to say that again, you don't need to be a member, but you must be either eligible to become a member if you aren't one, or have attended an international trade platform through Fáilte Ireland in 18, 19, or 20. New to this scheme from the last inbound agent scheme is the criteria around minimum eligible turnover. And that minimum eligible turnover is €50,000 in 2019 from the inbound business. So if you have other businesses or outbound business, it's the inbound business that we're looking for this scheme, please. You must have experienced a 50% downturn in turnover in 2021 compared to 2019. For 2021 turnover, please exclude EWSS or any other payments or state aid received, any other grant payments that were made in the last year or anything like that. That does not need to be included. You must be an existing operator and have been in existence prior to the start of January 2020. The other thing you must be is tax cleared. So that can actually hold up payments quite significantly. If you're not tax cleared, you may have otherwise made your way through the evaluation process. The grant amount has been calculated. We're ready to make that payment. But if you're not tax cleared when we come to do so, that will be slowed down until we can get that information from you or get that information from us. And continuation of trade, finally, it's you need to intend to continue trading in 2022 or when it's safe to do so in line with government guidance. So as you know, that's a movable fee sometimes. So I want to take a moment just to look at the funding award value, just to look at the funding calculations for this scheme. This is different to the previous inbound agent scheme. In this scheme, the grant amount will be based solely on the annual eligible turnover from 2019. The grant payment is calculated at 5% of the 2019 eligible tourism turnover. So that means that the minimum grant amount is €2,500 and the maximum grant amount is 800,000 per applicant or group. And that's a cap in on this scheme. Sorry, I brought that on a little bit too far. So that is the way the grant is calculated and the way that the funding will be awarded. I think I'm back on track with my slides. Sorry about that. The application process then, just before we get to some questions and answers, so you'd be glad to know now I'm reasonably near the end. What I want to talk to you here is not necessarily how to apply and how to move through the application form step by step, but more some tips and tricks around getting the most out of your application form and being able to move through that in the most efficient way possible. We've been doing this for some time now, and unfortunately, I suppose, but you know, from previous schemes, we now know that it sometimes happens that eligible businesses don't get their money as quickly as we would like, because of inaccuracies or some missing documentation in their application. It's so easy to make a typo on a number. It's so easy to attach the wrong file. You know, it's a really easy thing to do. Nobody will be penalized for it. It just slows things down. We will work with everybody where there's an inaccuracy or where something's missing or we need clarification or we're unsure of something. We will reach out and talk to everybody. Nobody will be left behind, but it does slow everything down. So just by way of an example, we took a look at the applicants over the last year or so, and the quickest were paid out in 5 weeks, with the longest taking 16 weeks. So you can see that's significant. When we have to start engaging and going back and forth with checking information and double checking, and you know, people might be busy or unavailable, and it just, that back and forth can just take a little bit of time to work out. So please, I would urge everybody to understand the application process, to read the guidelines. They'll be out on Wednesday afternoon. To read the guidelines, there's support notes with them, so you can look at how, what the application form is asking for and the type of files you can upload. So again, please do take your time to go through those. The second thing is that we will need management accounts for 2021, along with your 2019 financial statements. The 2021 management accounts, and I appreciate that 2021 was last week, but your 2021 management accounts, they're needed to help us compare with 2019 performance. We're not looking for audited accounts, but we will need something that will help us, you know, compare 2021 to 2019. So as close to final as you can get them to us. This is an audited scheme. We will be audited in the future. So we would ask that the information that you do send through to us is as complete as it can be for us. So finally, just how to apply. The scheme opens next Wednesday for 4 weeks, as I said, until the 9th of February. Online applications will be through the Fáilte Ireland Trade Portal only. That's the only way to apply for this scheme. I think most people on this call here probably have a Trade Portal account set up and are familiar with that process. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. Just go ahead over to the Fáilte Ireland website and create a new account for yourself on the Trade Portal. Customer support will be able to help you with that. So if you want to go ahead and get yourself set up ahead of next Wednesday, that would be great, but you can set up at any time. And the application form is available through that portal under the funding tab. If you don't see it from Wednesday afternoon under the funding tab, please drop customer support an email and they'll make it available for you. So just before we move on to answering some questions, I really just want you to be able to take three things away from this today. First, the schemes are largely the same, or this scheme is largely the same as last year, with some tweaks, such as the minimum eligible turnover being applied and the funding based on the percentage of eligible turnover. Secondly, we've reduced the downturn threshold from 75% to 50%. And finally, in applying for these schemes, please read the guidelines, please lean on the support notes and make sure that your application form is as complete as it possibly can be before you start. And that's it. I think I'll send it over to, before you submit. Thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Jane now again. Thanks.
Thank you, Linda. That's great. So hopefully you have enough information there to take you through the application. So now we'll go through the questions received both via the registration and during this webinar. And just to note, it won't be possible for us to answer any business specific questions. So if you do have those relating to your own business, you can contact our customer support and we'll provide the email address here and we will respond directly. So we have Adrian O'Donoghue back on screen, Linda and myself, and we'll go through those questions now. So Linda, the first question is for you. Will this presentation be available afterwards?
Yeah, we're recording the webinar, so it will be on our website tomorrow.
Great.
I think tomorrow. It'll be on the website shortly anyway.
Yeah, in the next few days, I think. And what is the closing date to apply?
Closing date is the 9th of February, 12 noon.
And Linda, another for you. How long will the application process take from start to payment?
The entire application process, as I said there, very much depends on how easy it is we find the evaluation process, so the completeness of the application form and the clearness of the information in the application. So this is a pay-as-you-go scheme. As soon as we have approved somebody and have evaluated them and approved them for payment, we will make that payment if we're able to do so. So again, if you're tax cleared, that will all move that through quite quickly. If we have to start engaging with the applicant and a little bit of back and forth on some parts of the application form, that will slow things down significantly. I'll also say though, we're expecting quite a high volume of applicants to come through. So again, please bear with us. That obviously has to be dealt with as well, just if there's a bottleneck of applicants at the start.
Okay, thanks, Linda. And Adrian, how will the grant be determined and how will it be paid?
Okay, well, the good news is it'll be paid directly into your bank account once we get you through the process. But the amount that you will receive, as Linda has outlined, it's 5% of 2019 eligible tourism turnover. So I know some of you may have other businesses or other elements of your business, but it is about the inbound piece, as Linda has outlined. The max that you can be awarded is €800,000. And across, under our business continuity programs, we're operating under European Union state aid rules, which allows us to provide up to €2.3 million in funding under this temporary state aid framework. So essentially, we've been operating under this since 2020. So it's your cumulative amount. So in some instances, people will come close to that threshold, but there's only a few that will be hit by that, and we'll work with you around that. If you, as Linda provided an example, if your amount and your 5% ends up being $1 million, it's only 800 that you can get from this individual scheme, and that's paid to the entity or a group. And we'll come back to the group piece a little bit later on. I know a question on that to come.
Okay, thank you. Linda, what documents can be accepted as financial statements for the application?
So for financial statements, what we're looking for is your 2019 financial statements. They're your closed financial statements. Sometimes they're audited, sometimes they're not. Profit and loss account for a sole trader, if that's the case, and management accounts for 2021. Now, your management accounts do not need to be drawn up by an accountant. They do not need to be signed off. Very aware that 2021 was only a week ago. So it does need to be your own accounts and something that we can use to establish that 50% threshold for that criteria and to be able to compare against 2019. If it's not clear, the information that we receive isn't clear, we will then go into some communication with the applicant to just establish the little bit of clarity that we might need. But essentially, they're the two pieces of information that we are going to need. If your calendar year doesn't run on, if your financial year doesn't run on a calendar year, you can upload to us the financial accounts, the financial statements that run across 2019 to give us that full year as well.
Great. And just we have a question in here also, Linda, you might be able to take. The applicant had provided 3 years accounts to the last scheme. Will they need to provide those again?
No, just 2019, please.
Great. Adrian, here's one for you, hopefully. I understand that I need to be 50% down on turnover in 2021 compared to 2019 to qualify. In terms of calculating the 2021 turnover, do they need to include state supports received, example, the EWSS or PUP, or previous government funding supports in their 2021 turnover?
Okay, so this has come up before with us. It is only related to actual monies received for tourism activities. So any funding provided either through government taxation schemes or through direct funding, maybe from us previously, must be excluded from your 2021 accounts to allow us to look at the 50% downturn. So just make sure that you exclude it. We will have a question on the application form just to understand the extent of the supports that you needed or that was provided to you, so to help distinguish that for us. So please do separate that out.
Great. And another one for you, Adrian. A question in the applicant thinks their business had less than 50,000 turnover in 2021 or in 2019. Does this mean they are ineligible for any support?
Yeah, the terms of this scheme is that's our minimum threshold, and it's a threshold that we've been applying across all of the schemes since 2020 onwards. So I know for those listening in, it's a new piece for the inbound agents, but it's an application of policy that we're doing it. So if you are less than that, you don't qualify under this scheme.
Okay. Linda, if somebody's business was set up in 2020, can they apply?
No, they're not eligible, unfortunately. They must have been in existence prior to 2020. Okay. Now, if somebody started their business in 2019 and meets the eligibility criteria, that's absolutely fine. They're welcome to apply. But unfortunately, if your business started in 2020, no, not for this scheme.
Okay. Adrian, I have one here for you. I operate more than one eligible business. Can I apply for both my businesses?
Yeah, so this comes back to an earlier point. So we're interested in the cumulative amount of the businesses, of the amounts that you have in terms of turnover. So for example, if you have multiple applications and if you are coming in under the same ownership structure for EU state aid purposes, that means you're a single undertaking. So you exist as a single applicant. So that's really important. So when you're submitting, if you have the similar ownership structure, that's considered a group. So if you have two businesses, you need to merge together your total amount of revenue. But if you're not and it's different, they can stand alone as individual applications. Again, that's something, as Linda's referred to, that's one of the issues that comes up for us. If you want to get clarity on that, do ask us in advance of your application, otherwise we'll work through with you. But it is a stipulation that we need to operate under the EU regulations.
Okay, there's another for you, Adrian. We are inbound tour operators and also a tourism coach operator. Which grant scheme is most applicable?
That's a good question. And if those of you might have seen us this morning, we spoke about the strategic tourism transport, which would include coach tourism. We are looking for separation of applications here, given the way we have the cohort set up. So you need to identify the different type of business in this case. So you can apply to both, but just make sure that you distinguish between the two. And obviously, if you have other revenues that sit outside that, you must not include them. So it must be about tourism activity in Ireland. I think that's clear enough in the guidelines. And just have a check of the guidelines. There's specific guidance on that in there as well. So have a look at that.
Okay. Linda, there's one for you. Is the scheme available to beneficiaries of previous Fáilte Ireland schemes?
Yes, that's no problem.
Okay. Another for you, Linda. We mentioned ineligible tourism turnover. Could you give some examples of what this might be?
Yeah, so if, for example, part of your business is outbound tours, or perhaps you have a business that is dealing with incentives and they're doing a Scotland trip and an Ireland trip, the Scotland portion wouldn't be eligible. Trips that are solely inbound to Northern Ireland, also not eligible.
Okay.
So it's tourism activity in the Republic of Ireland that is specifically related to the inbound business.
Okay. Another for you, Linda. What if my financial year doesn't run from January to December? How should I submit my 2019-2021 accounts?
Okay, so if your financial year doesn't run on a calendar year, there is the option in on the form to submit two uploads. So you can submit the two sets of accounts that you're going to need to give us the entirety of 2019. The 2021 management account, that's not something that's signed off. So if you've got a partial year done already, then you have that. It's just the top up that you're going to need to give us and then submit both together.
Okay, thank you. Adrian, this question's come in saying an applicant got TWSS, EWSS, PUP and LEO funding in 2021. And what do they do when declaring their 2021 turnover?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, it's similar to the earlier question. Any of those funds don't count towards your eligible tourism turnover. So again, just exclude them. And again, we'll ask you to note them in a different part of the application, but do exclude them.
Okay. Linda, if we received a grant last year from Fáilte Ireland, do we still need to prepare their 2019 accounts again?
Yes, please. You should hopefully have them to hand. You'll need to resubmit them.
Okay. And just, I think we may have mentioned this earlier with your information slides, but how to submit an application, do I use the online Fáilte Ireland portal?
Yeah. So that's the only way you can submit an application will be through the online trade portal, the Fáilte Ireland trade portal. Most people on this call probably have that set up. If you need to refamiliarize yourself with it, just log in and make sure that you can get through and that you can see the funding tab and that detail is there for you. Now, if you do that today, the application form will not be available. That won't be available until Wednesday afternoon. Anyone who's new into us and hasn't worked with us before or hasn't received any funding from us before, you will need to set up a new account for yourself. Again, no problem. Just go ahead and do that. It's very easy and straightforward to do, and customer support will be on hand to help you. In that case, it's likely that the form will not be pre-allocated for you, or it won't be pre-allocated for you. So if you don't see it, just ask customer support for it and they'll make it available for you.
Great, thank you. Adrian, we have a question here. Does the turnover include both Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland sales?
Yeah, again, it's because of our statutory remit, it's the Republic of Ireland activity only. So please do separate that out. If you want to make a note to us that you have done that, that'd be great as well, so we can understand that again, because as Linda's outlined, this is going to be audited. So whatever you declare will be subject to review as part of as we move forward with this, given the level of funding that's involved. So please do try to be as accurate and clear as possible with the amounts and where they're coming from. The application form will guide you in that direction.
This is probably similar to that, Linda or Adrian, for the eligibility criteria of 50%. Is it specific to international sales only or domestic and international sales for 2021?
It's sales for the inbound business into Ireland.
Okay. A few more now just to get through. Using the tour operator margin scheme, it is only my main gross profit. This is a question during the webinar that is listed on the accounts as sales turnover. However, the turnover or monies coming in from business, would it be significantly higher? Which figure should the applicant use? Adrian.
So in this case, so the money's turnout coming in from business will be significantly higher. Which figure should I use? I'm just using tour operator margin scheme, which is only my margin gross profit that is listed in accounts of sales turnover. I think we might take that question offline and respond directly on it. It's not clear from the question. I think on the information when I look at it again. So we'll come back and we'll clarify that. We will be doing a frequently asked questions for some of the questions that we might not be able to get to. And we can add that in there, so we'll get that responded to. We might just get clarity on that individual question from the person.
Just to say, if I can just jump in there for a second, there will be FAQs available on the website when we launch the scheme on Wednesday, in addition to the guidelines and the support notes for the application form. So we can answer this separately to the individual if we have their details, but certainly there will be an FAQ section as well. So, we will get as much information as we can for everybody.
Linda, is an event management company eligible to apply?
If they meet the criteria and have an inbound business. This is an inbound agent scheme. This isn't solely for event management companies or people who are operating domestically in Ireland.
Okay. Adrian, here's one for you. Will there be deductions made according to grant payments received from any of the 3 schemes as happened in 2020?
They'll be taken into consideration, but essentially you can qualify up to 800,000 as standalone. So the only time it comes in is if it becomes cumulative, and we're looking at 2.3 million. So if you had, for example, let's say if you had 2 million from us last year, you only can get 300,000 as a result. But I think there's very few that, if any, that are in that position. So you won't be discounting, it won't be taken off what you would be entitled. This is a standalone 2022 scheme with that just ceiling in mind. Okay,
thanks, Adrian. Linda, if there's a fall in turnover in 2021 versus 2019, is the same fall as 2020 versus 19, can we expect the same amount of a grant? So.
Sorry, Jane, can you say that again to me?
Sorry, this is a question. If an applicant's fall in turnover is the same as I suppose, downturn, 2021 versus 2019, and then 2020 versus 2019, can they expect the same amount of a grant?
So we're not looking at 2020 for this scheme?
Yeah.
2020 is not in the parameters here. 2019 is our base pre-pandemic year, and the comparative year is 2021. And for that, your fall in tourism turnover is 50%. So that's what we're looking at. In terms of how the grant is calculated, if that's that question, which I'm not sure it is, but this grant is calculated as are all of the grants through the business continuity scheme, most of them anyway, on your tourism turnover, your eligible tourism turnover. So there are some exceptions to that, but that's how this grant is working.
And maybe just to add to that, the parameter of this grant scheme are obviously a little bit different than the one you might have been involved with us before. Yeah. So it is a more like, I suppose, a straight line review when you look at 2019. And it's on the basis of that, with that being obviously the full last year of activity. So it's a little bit more straightforward, and we've lined up all of other schemes in that way. So I think the question was maybe looking at if it's the same, at 2020 doesn't really come into it. We're keen to see how you've gotten on in 2021. Funding was provided to help you with 2021 previously.
Yeah.
We've kind of come close to the end of the questions. There is one asking us to go over the eligibility, but just they missed the start of the webinar, but just I suppose to point out that the recording of this will be available on our website together with all the guidelines and information. So I'm not sure if we need to go over them again.
We can say, like, broadly, you need to be a relevant business type, and within that there are some criteria, and that will be available in the guidelines next week. The minimum tourism turnover in 2019 of €50,000, 50% downturn in tourism turnover from 2021 compared to 2019. When you look at 2019, look at 2021. They're the main criteria. The other thing, which is not a criteria, but it's just something I would say, is please make sure you're tax cleared, because that will slow things down at the end. And it just seems to be something that can trouble some people sometimes. So it won't stop you getting paid, but it'll certainly delay it significantly.
Great, thanks, Linda. So it looks like we've come to the end of the questions. Is there anything further, Adrian or Linda, you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'm just looking at them coming through. They're just starting to repeat on us. And if any of the questions come in, again, we'll treat them on an FAQ basis, and we'll add them in. I suppose ultimately just going back to the kind of the macro perspective on this, we are aware of how important this funding is. And we are very keen. That's why we're sitting here on January 6th, getting this together for you as quick as we can. But in order to help us get the monies to you, please do help us with the accuracy of the information that you provide to us, any further clarity that you need, and do use the guidelines. I know it's easy to jump into the application form and go with that, but if there's something not clear in the guidelines, don't make a guess at it. Have a go. It's been defined for you in the guidelines and should help you with your answer. Saving us going back and forth, keeps you towards the top of the pile as we line things up for payment. So that would be, I suppose, message one. And then on the second one, I suppose just try to be, I suppose, make sure that you read the guidelines, but just make sure that you understand the separation of funding if you have different funding streams coming into your business. Just make sure that you have that lined up. In particular, if you're working across both schemes, which can be a little bit complicated, but we're happy again to work with you on this basis. I don't know, Linda, do you want to add anything else?
No, I think that captures everything, Adrian. The only other one thing that I would add is if we have to reach out to you for missing documentation, like I said in the presentation, it's so easy to do that. If for point of clarity or if there's something that we need, please work with us. We're trying to move through them as quickly as possible. The ultimate aim of this is to have everyone paid as soon as possible. So please, work with us if we do need to reach out to you or if we do have to check anything with you. We're just trying to move through everything as quickly as we can. So if that's the case, that would be great.
Great, thank you. So just to say thank you all for your attendance today. All the further information will be available on the website, including a copy of this recording for reference once the scheme opens next Wednesday afternoon, the 12th of January. So go to www.fáilteireland.ie and there'll be a tab in there for funding. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.